Welcome to the Thank You Life podcast. Today's guest is Kelly Madden. Kelly is one of our grantees who received financial assistance to experience a ketamine-assisted psychotherapy retreat last year. And as you'll hear when she shares, it came at the perfect time for her. And this episode really represents our intention with this podcast, to be able to share stories of healing. We want to highlight the humans who are actually going through these transformational experiences through ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. For everybody that we fund through our grant program for ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, we collect pre and post assessment scores. So we collect their depression, anxiety, and PTSD symptom scores before treatment, after treatment, and then 6-month, 12-month follow-up. And when we see the drastic reduction in their symptoms, it's notable. It's somewhere around 60% on average, and that's that's orders of magnitude better than the standard of care of talk therapy and pharmaceuticals. So what we really want to highlight is, yes, this quantitative data is important because it helps to open people up and show some validity to this type of work, though there's a lot more to the story than just these scores. For Kelly, for example, her PHQ-9, which is a depression score out of 27 being maximum severity for depression, her score was an 18 when she came into her treatment, which is extremely high. That's in the severe range. After her treatment, when they ran the tests again, she had dropped from an 18 to a 2, which is mild. So that's a drastic reduction. Even just going from 18 to 2, you can already imagine, that's got to be some profound effect. But what does that actually mean? Going beyond the scores, what does this mean for a human being? As Kelly shares, going from an 18 to a 2 represented going from a breaking point where the series of events led her to such a deep despair and depression that she didn't know how she would get out of it, to then having this transformational weekend and this retreat where she does several medicine sessions with some good integration afterward to really harvest those insights. And now she has such a positive outlook and hope, and all of these things are starting to fall into place for her. And she's starting to see the meaning for her suffering. And Dr. Dan Engle, our co-founder, loves to say that as soon as our suffering is divorced from meaning, then we feel hopeless, essentially. So we hope you enjoy this episode. This is such a beautiful conversation. Kelly really shares from the heart, and you can really feel how deep the pain was that she was going through. In this conversation, Kevin and Kelly also talk about the combination of using therapies and modalities like EMDR, IFS, internal family systems, as a framework for doing this type of therapy, and then actually getting into the ketamine space and what those medicine sessions really looked and felt like for Kelly, how some loved ones who had passed had come through and helped to guide her experience, and how significant that was for her. So I won't share too much. Kelly's story really speaks for itself. And if you find yourself impacted by this episode and you would like to make a donation so that other people like Kelly can have access to these treatments, which most people cannot afford out of pocket, please do visit our website, thankyoulife.org. The link will be in the description below. And we hope you enjoy this episode with Kelly Madden.
Thank You Life is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that was started by myself and Dr. Dan Engle in 2022 as a financial assistance fund for psychedelic therapy. Psychedelic therapy is expensive, and 95% of the U.S. population cannot afford its costs. That's where we come in. We partner with over 100 ketamine clinics throughout the U.S. to help clients who cannot afford this treatment. In 2024 alone, we gave over $250,000 away to help 115 people receive this life-changing treatment. This work is not cheap, and it is life-changing. If you feel inspired to give or to become a monthly donor to help more individuals access this treatment, please visit thankyoulife.org/donate or email our Director of Philanthropy, Meredith Thomas, at meredith@thankyoulife.org. Every bit counts, and small monthly donations are especially important to keep this work moving forward. If you can give even $10 to $25 a month, you will join our community of contributors who are changing the lives of so many. Thank you all for your support.
This episode of the Thank You Life podcast is proudly supported by Enthea, a mental health company dedicated to providing access to safe and affordable psychedelic-assisted therapy. Like us at Thank You Life, Enthea is committed to removing health equity obstacles that impede access to impactful mental health care. Enthea is a third-party administrator specializing in innovative mental health benefits for employers, including access to ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. As the first and only provider of advanced mental health solutions for the workplace, They enable companies to expand their benefits to include breakthrough therapies that address root causes of mental health challenges. Visit enthia.com to learn more. And now back to the show.
All right. Hello again, everybody. And today we're here with Kelly Madden, who is a Thank You Life grantee. And a few months back, she did ketamine retreat with one of our dear practitioners, Karen Rocio, out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And yeah, Kelly, thank you so much for being willing to share your story today.
Thank you for inviting me and letting me share my story.
And, you know, when we were talking before we started rolling, you said something really strong, that this was something like the most powerful experience that you've had or something like that. I'm curious just to hear you express.
I've been going to therapy with Dr. Karen, who is, I keep telling her, just keep saving one life at a time. EMDR and internal family systems. And, you know, got far and got deep. And then there just gets to this point where you feel like stuck. And so she mentions that she's got this ketamine retreat coming up and she's been doing this training, and that there was, you know, a scholarship, and I ended up getting a full scholarship to go. And that previous week or so before that, now I think about it, I was basically on that verge of like that mental breakdown where I just couldn't take anymore. And then I went on this retreat and it changed my entire life in so many ways. And I'll cry a lot. I had no expectations of what this was going to be, but I just knew that she was passionate about it. And I mean, I healed like so much and went so deep and so far. And my sessions with her after have just been so different. Like,
Yeah,
I have
sure.
accessed this like teenage part that I've never seen before. That's the core. Like, she's the one. Like, she's the firefighter. She's the one who's just been hanging on for like so long. So without this retreat, like, I don't, you know, my general practitioner, like, she was like, I've never seen you like this before. And she's like, I know you'll never do anything, but I just have to ask you, are you going to do anything to yourself? And that's not me. Like, that's not who I am. So it was like a last hope kind of thing, because I was at my, like, I couldn't take anymore.
Your general practitioner asked that right before the retreat.
I happened to have like an appointment with her to get some blood work drawn, and she's known me and seen me through a lot of the things that I've been through in the last many years, and she's never asked me that before. No one has ever asked me that before. So it was very interesting. She's like, only because I know you. And she was like, you're literally looking for this as a last hope. And it was. That was it. I was looking. I was like, if this doesn't help, then I don't know what I'm going to do. And I went in and it was just fucking amazing. Just so healing, not traumatic, not like, it was just so loving. And God, I wish everyone in the world could experience this who's had something that they've gone through that they can't heal. Like, that was my wish, that's my wish. I know that that's probably your wish, right? Like, so more people get this, because like, people are hurting, you know?
Got goosebumps and also tears in my eyes, and we're 4 minutes in.
I mean, it just, my story is, I don't want to say that, but it's like, I have this story. It's like that I've been through so many things in my life. Like, I shouldn't be here. You know, the body keeps score. Statistically, I should not be the human that I am right now with the things that I've been through. This ketamine retreat literally reset my nervous system, took my baseline down so that I could function. And I don't know what I would have done without the scholarship, the ability to do this. Like, it just was fucking amazing.
One thing we get to say about a lot of people is that they express, and then we get to pay that forward and express it for them, that they feel like they got their life back. And it seems like you're in that boat.
I did, you know, I got my life back, because, you know, I've been through so many things in my life. And in my 40s, I just was like, okay, I exercised everything. I diet, you know, I did all these things thinking I was going to like fix it and heal it. And it was like, I was running away from the internal stuff, trying to fix what I looked like. And you know, and schedules. And it was like, that wasn't what I needed to do. And at 40, I decided like, hey, it's time to fucking go deep and go in. And that's where my journey really started with Karen, was like really understanding what childhood trauma truly does to you. And sometimes it doesn't come out until you're older. It's crazy, right? You go through life and you're like, I'm just going to keep going, until you're like, wait, so that's not normal.
You know, I think of it like an analogy of carrying a load. And yeah, it's like at 20, if we have 100 pounds on our back, like, all right, we got this. I barely notice it. I'm still doing the shit that I'm doing.
but then it's like if it's still there at 30 and then at 40, like, it's like, then it really starts to wear us down. And I don't know if like you imagine taking a hike.
It's just a literally visual that was like, you can't carry it anymore. You can't go. Like to the T, that's exactly in my mind what that feeling was like.
I'm curious to hear you speak a little bit more about, you were saying like you wouldn't be able to do that without the scholarship. And I guess, yeah, would you be open to speaking about what it meant for you?
Absolutely. Divorced, have 2 kids who are amazing fucking humans. They're both graduating. My son's graduating UNC Chapel Hill this year, and my daughter's graduating high school. Went through a divorce after 2020, which I feel like everybody did. Just kind of crashed down marriages, and found out I had breast cancer in 2022, had a double mastectomy in 2023 with reconstruction surgery, like lost my job, got shingles a week. Like, just when I say it, it keeps going, like just trying to stay afloat. And Karen, who is the most amazing person in the world, would, sometimes not charge me because therapy's not cheap. And that's an unfortunate fact. So I could not, just to stay afloat, live by myself, kids, I wouldn't, there's not a chance that I would have been able to afford to do this if I did not get this scholarship. And the fact that she really pushed for me to get that full, I told her, I'm like, I just owe her my life, like, thank you, life, like, really.
And, I want to give a shout out to a dear friend of ours in Charlotte, John Kaplan, who was one of the big donors that we, it was his generosity that was able to have this fund for the retreat. So big shout out to him too for making this all possible.
So much, so many gracious thank yous, and got a card ready for him. And he wanted to sort of remain anonymous, but I hope that he gets to hear this and see what the impact that did for someone.
And it sounds like his story was a bit similar in terms of like really being at a breaking point and finding this and finding tremendous life change from it. And I know his hope was that others would get it. So it's really sweet to be in this like kind of full circle moment.
Absolutely.
Talking with you.
Yes.
Okay, so if we rewind a little bit, something else you said before we started was that there's just been trauma since birth. And I'm wondering if you can take us through what that's been.
I kind of had like 2 of the worst people in the world that decided to have children. My mom abandoned me, my sister, and my brother. I was 19 months old from an extremely abusive, narcissistic husband, which I've had to do a lot of work on forgiving her for doing that. So I don't have a lot of like childhood memories, and thankfully through therapy I've had some. And my older sister, who's basically like my memory bank, was abused just physically through hypnotherapy. Found out that I was sexually abused. I didn't know that until I was in my 40s.
Yeah, amnesia's a really important defense mechanism.
I knew that there's memories there, but they're just like, they're stuck, like they were stuck. It was the protection, that was firefighters, those protectors, they were in there, like, because I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to remember until I was ready to heal and really dive deep. And with, that, my father, we were taken away, and we were in an orphanage, and and I don't remember like a lot of these things. My sister is my memory. But he was.
Oh, you're the youngest of
I'm the baby, yes. And my sister has all the memories. But the memories that I do have were extremely horrific, and just being beaten, made to eat my own vomit. My father was just sociopath. Like, now that he's still alive, my mom's passed away, and just extremely, extremely, like, I think since birth, like, just felt unwanted, unloved by a mother who couldn't handle her own trauma. And I don't know why they were attracted to each other, but usually, that's what sort of happens when you're unhealed. You're attracted to somebody who's not good for you. So yeah, she left, and my grandparents and my aunts took us from Tennessee. So my grandparents raised me. My sister and my brother both lived with
from your mother's side?
From my father's parents.
Got it.
And their sisters. So we all lived around the same area in Louisiana, but we all lived like separately, and just never really felt accepted by the family. Always felt like the black sheep, and it was a really tough life. And that's just childhood, you know, and then moved back and forth and met my mom, 11 or 12. And, that's the little girl who's come out since this ketamine retreat was when I met my mom. I didn't meet her until I was a teenager. And she is extreme bipolar, I think that there's a lot more there, but extreme mood disorder problems, and just moved back and forth. And I was a teenager doing stupid shit. And my grandparents were like, you're going to live with your dad, whom I never really remembered because I was 19 months old, and he was extremely abusive and narcissistic. I was 17. He threw me across the room, and at that point I lived on friends' couches. This was my senior year of high school, and it just continually was just going from here to there, and just really being in fight or flight mode my entire life, surviving, but refusing to live or be around people who were like that. And that was being homeless or whatever you want to call it, but series of terrible relationships with men that were just not good for me, and bad decisions. And yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, the body keeps score, and you see they track these kids that have been abused and what they statistically become, right? They don't become 45-year-old, like I look normal on the outside and I have this great life. It's usually not like that. You don't have two amazing kids. You don't get to make it. And I did. And I think I just beat the odds, And that's what I want to continue to do, is not be a statistic.
Yeah. Some emotion here as you're sharing some of those.
It's very heavy. And that's just the little shell of it. Like there's just so much more like in between, but that's really the basis of it, was just brought into this world, not feeling loved and rejected and abandoned and abused as a baby.
It's hard to come back from.
But you can, and I feel like that's what my story is, like you can, but you got to do the work.
So what's that emotion there?
I think sometimes I don't give myself enough credit for how far I've come and the work that I've done. And people do tell me that like all the time. And I think I'm starting to like see that, like, that's what the work is for. I've had friends that are like, why would you want to go back and remember those things? And I'm like, because they're not memories that I need to hold. It's not my fault. You have to go through it. You got to go through it to get through it. And if you do not like fix and work and heal those things, I don't want to live like that anymore, pretending and always just, always pretending like everything was okay because I had to. And I'm like, you know what? It's 2024. Like, it's okay to not be okay, and admit it, but do the work, right? It's okay to not be okay. But I didn't know that for a long time. There was shame, guilt, right? Like all those things that you internalize. I think with this breast cancer, genetically, not a single thing. I believe that it was the trauma, that like disease, that holding this in 40 years did that. And I'm not going down like that. We come from, our parents' generation. We took that down. We don't talk about that. Therapy was not it's not a thing. And I do joke with everyone. I'm like, bro, it's 2024. Like therapy's fucking cool, right?
It's cool now.
We don't look down on that, I'm like, here's my therapist number, here's what I've diagnosed you with. Like,
I'm sure people love that.
oh, I do. They do, but it's true. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to need therapy. It's okay to have to talk through these things with someone, because the burdens, that package, that hike, you can't carry it forever. It kills you inside. It gives you disease. And I believe in my whole heart that that's what that did to me.
Are you familiar with Gabor Mate?
Yes, love him.
One of his books, I think his most recent book kind of gets into this too. But yeah, he had a book, what is it? When the Body Says No?
There's quite a few.
When the Body Says No, exploring the stress disease connection.
Real.
Yeah. That book is very fascinating. And there was something in there where, I forget the specifics of it, but they basically gave some doctors, I believe, just psychological evaluations of a number of different patients. And they were, with a 90% accuracy, able to say which ones had cancer, because the psychological profile is so similar. And I forget exactly, but I think what he was getting at, it was a lot of repressed anger.
because that's usually my like first, because anger is easier than sadness, right? I've learned to work more with the sadness and less anger over the years. But I was angry for a long time and I didn't know why, like it would just happen and little things would make me explode. And it's like, I understand that now. But it's that anger, and it kills you. It kills people. And I bet you if one of those doctors looked at it, that's Karen, that was like one of the first things that we talked about. I did all the genetics, all the there's not a single person in my family that has breast cancer. And thank God there's no genetics so that my daughter doesn't have to worry about that. But this is what happens when you let life take you down and you don't take care of your inner world.
Yeah. Thank you for really bringing yourself.
Yeah. I'm very much an open book. So like I said, there's no questions that are off the table.
So you were mentioning 40, and you were saying you're 45 right now. Is that what you were just saying? So that must have been like kind of just before 2020.
So 2020 came with COVID, and that's when my marriage fell apart, and it was not a healthy marriage at all. And then I went to see found Karen, was looking for doctors on Psychology Today. I had a friend that was like, maybe look into internal family systems, found her. We met.
And so basically, like up until this point, you'd just been like white knuckling it, so to speak.
Oh, like just fight, just keep going. I did not recognize what was I didn't realize my childhood and all these things were causing all of these other patterns. So when I really started I went to yoga teacher training. So that's when it really started. And, they really break you down in there. They make you write a eulogy to yourself. And my mom had died like the week of the eulogy. It was just crazy. So I started to break the pieces down little by little. And that was sort of how it all started and escalated into finding Karen.
And is that when you started uncovering the memories bit by bit?
So I told my husband that I wanted a divorce in 2021. And then I had a friend who was doing a hypnotherapy retreat, and she helped me fund that as well. And through the hypnotherapy, I recovered those memories. And they were very real. And I was like, am I making this shit up? Like, is it, it wasn't fake. It was real. And it was something that I had always sort of had in the back of my mind. So then that's when the work really started.
Yeah, and can you say a little bit more about that? Like what it means that it was like kind of in the back of your mind, but also not quite conscious?
It's hard when you've been through so much trauma and you don't have a lot of memories. So you're like, is this real? Like, is that not real? Like, I was like, felt like something had happened more than I had knew, the abuse. I remembered being beaten daily, like with a switch, just you name it, very sadistic type of abuse. And then I went through this retreat and talked to my sister, and she's my timeline, she's my memory. And she was like, it makes sense, the timing, because they were both in school and I was home, and he molested my sister as well. So when my mom left, he basically took it out on us. So when there's just like something there, but you can't access memories, it gave me the ability to start accessing memories.
How was that hypnotherapy retreat for you to have these memories emerge, and what was it like to land back in your life at?
It hit me like a fucking dump truck. It hit me like a dump truck. I knew I needed to go for so many reasons. And it really started like that's where I had to start. To me, it's like I always like to go 100%. And that came, and I just dove real deep back into therapy with Karen, and we worked on it. And our first session was like, write down every trauma that you've ever had. And I was like, are we going to be here forever? I think I'm going to have to see you for the rest of my life. So it was unpacking those and starting just with that and learning to deal with that and processing that, because that was a lot to process.
With EMDR, it sounds like.
Yes, but it was one of those that I was like, all right, well, this is what we're doing. This is what you need. Like, you found like the core of what's been going on. So let's just do it. And that's just how it was. I wanted to leave my marriage. I was unhappy. I knew things needed to change. And I did that hypnotherapy and told my husband I was leaving like within the same month. Like, it literally happened. But I was done with just white knuckling. Can't do that ever.
Just to give people some context too, EMDR is this modality. It's really great for like event-specific traumas, which, you kind of had after you started getting these memories. And I would say in general, the kind of basic dynamic is this idea that there's a lot of like emotional content attached to a memory. And so the idea is to use this particular process. It involves bilateral stimulation to kind of activate both sides of the brain. And through this process, we keep kind of being with the memory, letting the mind take us where it will, keep coming back to the memory. And bit by bit, it seems like the brain and the nervous system is able to digest what happened. And so, they'll often ask like, okay, how triggering is this memory? And it might start at like an 8 or a 10. And then bit by bit, it might go down to a 4 and eventually a 0. And, the memory's still there, but a lot of the maybe quote unquote baggage has been processed through.
Yes.
And, the way I kind of see it is like, there's the core wound or memory. There's all the kind of pain of that memory on top of it. And then there's, and that's a lot.
Yes.
But then there's also just the out picturings of what all that pain does and how that pain distorts so much other stuff. And, the shame, the guilt that you're talking about, I imagine from what you went through, worthlessness, feelings of worthlessness, and, from the abandonment, all this sorts of out picturings can then begin. It's like, trying to untie a knot, and you like pull that thread that like begins to untie it all.
Yes. And you get to heal it and take those little baby parts, because you go through the ages of whatever, and you get to listen to them and let them heal. And
Yes.
it's pretty amazing. But when you tell people, it's like, oh, you have parts, and you're like, no, it's not like that. So, you can't tell it to everybody.
You're listening to the Thank You Life podcast because you're interested in hearing inspiring stories about people's personal growth, transformation, and healing with psychedelics. And that's awesome because those stories are really powerful and they deserve to be heard. But if you are anything like me, you are also interested in what's happening out in the world to make these substances, these medicines, more accessible and available to everyone. So my name is Henry Winslow, and I created a free email newsletter called Tricycle Day that helps you do just that. Every week, I send 2 issues that take about 5 minutes to read, so not a huge time commitment at all, but they'll get you caught up on what's happening in psychedelic research, policy reform, and this emerging industry that's unfolding in real time. So if that sounds like something you would like to check out, just go to tricycleday.com, and there you can enter your email and you'll be good to go. So with that said, I'm super happy to be supporting Thank You Life, and let's get back to the podcast.
This episode of the Thank You Life podcast is proudly supported by Dr. Bronner's, a brand that believes in more than just making great soap. As a dedicated corporate sponsor of Thank You Life, Dr. Bronner's is helping us break down barriers to mental health care, advancing our mission to providing life-changing access to psychedelic therapy for those in need. Together, we're making healing possible for underserved communities across the country. So next time you see that iconic bottle on the shelf, know that Dr. Bronner's isn't just providing that refreshing shower. They're also invested in improving access to mental health care for everyone. Thank you, Dr. Bronner's, for being a true partner in healing. Visit drbronner's.com to learn more. Now back to the show. Yeah, I was going to ask because I love that she does IFS, which is the sort of parts work, and EMDR. So will you share a little bit about how she kind of blends those two together?
You have your parts, your firefighters, which are like the ones that are like the anger, the rage, like holding on, your protectors, the exiles. There's all these little, and it sounds really crazy when you like tell it to people, but when you really like start to really dive into it, it helps you separate, all right, well, this is an exile part when you go into a memory. Sometimes you can't see anything. And it took a while for me to get into it. I'll start with that. We had to do a lot of image transformation. I'm not sure if you're familiar. I'm sure you are familiar with that.
No, actually. Will you share a little bit?
Well, when there's a lot of anxiety, when we've done some sessions, a lot of times I get like a burning in my neck or a burning in my throat, and you go with what that image looks like to you. It could be sludge. It could be red fire. So you think of it and it's like a breathing exercise, and then you start to breathe in, and there's many different parts of it. But basically, you'll start to breathe into your right side of your brain and then breathe it out and bring it into the earth, and then go into the left side and the middle side of your brain and the back of your brain and in your arms and your body. And so it's basically letting this sensation out through the breathing exercises. And at the end, whatever picture you have, if it's still there, what does it feel like? And then you kind of go through it again until that memory is like dissolved and you feel safe again. And I'm sure if Karen listens to this, you're like, that's not exactly how it goes, but it's really when you have like such anxiety from a memory, like those physical sensations, that's memories, that's trauma stored. And it's trying to just help that move through your body by going through your brain. And let me tell you, that shit knocks you out. Like it really, EMDR and image transformation, you're exhausted after. Like completely wiped out emotionally, physically, but it's like you've been holding on to it for so long. It's like your body's finally like, okay. So that's a really dumb, version of like what image transformation is. But when my anxiety is really high, we would have to go through that just to calm down my nervous system.
Even like before the EMDR.
So I couldn't go into it sometimes because I was so anxious. Yes, when I was
Wow.
going through the thick of it, we had to do a lot of that because the bilateral was just too much for my brain and my anxiety. And I think I just had to feel safe, right? Kind of with the ketamine thing too, like this is safe, this is okay, like you can do this. So we've done a lot of that. We haven't had to do a lot of that lately, but I don't remember where this started, but yeah, like parts, and you tell people that and like, so it feels like a taboo kind of thing. It's not like you have like split personalities, but it's just breaking down childhood trauma and where you've put yourself in a place at that time. Like the hidden ones, and you can't see them sometimes and you can't access them, and going through like a specific memory. It's been so life-changing. Like I love EMDR and internal family, for specific people. It's just, it's really amazing because talk therapy is just, it can only do so much.
Yeah, it's great to talk about when we're talking about like current life stressors and how to think through a relationship and difficult conversations and that kind of stuff. But yeah, then when we're like turning inward toward trauma, and
you have to do something that is really more effective.
Yeah. And that like fundamentally what all of these things do is help move the trauma through the nervous system and let the nervous system actually digest it instead of holding on to it.
Correct.
Much like, the classic example is what we see animals do. And they might be in a fight flight state while they're like running away from a predator or something. But then once that experience ends, they'll go find a safe place and shake it all out and just literally have their body be shaking. And I think fundamentally we just don't do that. And
we keep going. We keep that fight or flight stays. Because when it's all that's your baseline. You don't know how to like shake it off. It sticks with you and you keep it, and then it makes you angry, and then it makes you sad. Like it just does all these, self-destructive things. So once you start to unpack it, you recognize that you don't have to be in that fight or flight forever, and that it's okay. Right?
And like, I was gonna say, and like in a childhood like yours, there was no end to it. There was never like, now I'm safe and can shake it out. It was just, I've been fucking tense now for 13 years, now 14, and it's just endless.
Like endless. There was never a safe. There were moments of safe, and I don't want to say never, but like there were very few and far between moments of safe.
Yeah. And yeah, I love IFS, and it is the main way, it's the main lens I use to like view my own inner world. It's so helpful. Yeah. And it sounds like she really uses IFS as this kind of, the scaffolding. And then, like the EMDR is like the kind of tool to really like work the memories through. And what made me think of it that way was how you were describing, like you would be doing EMDR with an exile, but you already had the sense like, okay, I know what this part is. I know it's this exile, which for people who are not familiar with IFS is basically this like hurt child part that was in such pain that we exiled it. We kind of banned it from our conscious mind because it was too difficult, too painful to seal. But yeah, that's cool. I love that you would do a piece of work with EMDR and have that IFS as a scaffolding to know what the part is, who the part is, and know a bit about it.
Yeah.
Really cool.
And learning it and becoming one with them, right? And going in with them to heal. And I do have to say, after this ketamine, EMDR, it has been a whole nother fucking level, like a whole other level. It's unbelievably amazing. Like I told Karen, I was like, I feel smarter. I'm like, does that sound stupid? She's like, no, like your neural pathway, that like it just, my brain feels clear, and EMDR can do that, but like, again, there's only so far my body was letting me go to. Because then when other things started to pile up again, like my sessions started to back down and I couldn't access my parts anymore because I was so stressed.
I had another little like image come to mind, which is like a lake. It's like, okay, your brain is still your brain, but imagine a lake being all like gross and muddy and full of algae, and a lake that's like crystal clear. And light is going to go through the crystal clear lake way differently than it goes through the muddy lake. And you can think of light as being like the electrochemical reactions that are happening in our brain. Like one of them is going to be really streamlined and clear and just sharp, and the other it's not. It's going to be cloudy and foggy in there and
Foggy,
confusing.
brain fog. Like one of the biggest things that I had, like I think that is brain fog, and it's real. And that was such a good description of what that, if you imagine that as your brain, what that feels like.
Yeah, and then just imagine, if someone's in a fog their whole life, what's it like to give them some clarity and to even, they're like, oh, like I just thought that was as best as it could be. I didn't even know there could be this much kind of clarity.
No, you don't. You're like, this is like what you're supposed to feel like. Like you're supposed to feel okay, and yes, of course, okay, throughout life, but like really realizing the fight or flight, like my entire life. And then the freeze comes in too, like, like all of those phases. But with EMDR, IFS, and ketamine, I've really, like, I can see the light again, and the brain fog has truly almost 100% dissipated. Yeah.
Okay, so you had the hypnotherapy, you started seeing Karen, started doing all of this trauma work as you were getting a divorce. And then there's two other pieces here. You mentioned the breast cancer coming up in 2022, surgeries, 2023, all of this. And then you getting to a breaking point in 2024. Yeah, I'm curious what in there feels alive to share about.
The breast cancer was a shocker. Again, no one in my family had it. Was working for a narcissist at the time, which was very traumatic. Lost my job. And we haven't talked a lot about my mom, but my mom was, she left, but she died in 2020. She was an alcoholic. She would drink hand sanitizer, but like she was like that kind of alcoholic. So she basically died very traumatically. And that hit me really hard because we did not have a relationship. But she had left us some money, me, my brother, and my sister. She had an IRA account and the money in her bank account. So ironically, at the time, this woman who abandoned me and didn't do anything for me saved my life with the money that she had given. So I didn't have a job at the time and went through the double mastectomy, had met a guy who ended up being the worst narcissist in the world, even tops my dad, but ended up being the biggest lesson of my life that changed my life forever. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, everything happened and it was really hard to not have a job. I had to leave my family home and find a new house. And it was, it was just at the same time. I had to like reschedule my surgery because I had to move out of my house and had the surgeries and was just kind of frozen for a really, really long time. Frozen. I was in freeze mode. I was paralyzed. I had these things done to me that I didn't ask to be done, but it was a life decision. I had my reconstruction surgery in July of last year, got shingles 2 weeks later. Like it was terrible. And then started a job in August. And I was just, again, going, surviving. This terrible relationship really ripped my entire world apart. And that happened. And then just kept going. And I just kept going. And I just kept going. And menopause and trying to recover from 2 major surgeries and what it does to your body and trying to work a full-time job. And I just couldn't anymore. Like I was just fighting and fighting and fighting, like that white knuckling until I just like couldn't anymore. All of those things just broke me, even though I was trying to be so strong. I could carry it anymore. And trying to show up to work and have a smile on your face and, just like that pretending. I couldn't pretend anymore. So the pretending was really where, like, I think that broke me. I couldn't function. And I have major GI issues, like, after this, and trying to show up and work a job and trying to do all these things. Like, I couldn't handle it anymore. My body's like screaming at me to stop. But I got to get up. I didn't sleep sometimes for 5 nights, and I have to get up and go to fucking work, put a smile on my face, and just struggle through the day. Like, struggle. Couldn't carry it anymore. Like, all of those things accumulated, and I never got to deal with my breast cancer because I had this really shitty boyfriend who did some really shitty things to me. So it was like when you put it all off, and then it's like, hey, we're still here. Couldn't anymore.
So you were seeing Karen through this time.
There was a long break with seeing Karen in between the surgeries because of I was down and out for like quite a long time. So we kind of halted therapy for quite a while. And then when starting back, I was in this really terrible relationship that I wasn't honest with her about. So the EMDR, I was struggling. I wasn't able to access things, but I wasn't telling her how terrible it was. So I was lying to my therapist because I was ashamed. Shame, like, just takes everything away from you. I was ashamed.
But to say that.
And she's like, that you don't have to. And I'm like, I know, but it's one of those, I've done that all my life though. Like, I've been going through these things and no one ever knew because I just put on the face so that nobody knew how terrible my life was. So it was what I was used to. Even with my therapy, like, I think about it now and I'm like, what the fuck were you thinking, Kelly? But it was just what I knew how to do.
Yeah.
And I've forgiven myself for that.
It makes sense that when intense life stressors come back, that, coping mechanisms that we've had since the beginning of life also will return.
Yes. So I was doing the same things that I've done my whole life. And I didn't know it at the time, though.
Sure.
To sit back and reflect on it, I'm like, that's what you've done your whole life, Kelly. Nobody knew. And I was just lying to myself to the point where I couldn't lie to myself anymore.
And that had to start coming off again.
And that was a really big, we're going to get to that in the ketamine when we talk about that, because that was a very big theme. It's crazy. Yes.
Yeah. So these were like kind of the real intense life stressors that essentially brought you to this breaking point that you felt that you were at when the retreat came.
It just came at I believe in divine timing. I happened to meet this like psychic lady, I don't know, randomly. I'm just going to go off on a tangent, and
Please.
Met her at a nail salon. I had to leave work early because I was just going through a lot of shit. And I was like, I'm going to go get my nails done and sit next to this lady who just starts talking to me. And then just starts telling me all this shit about my life. I said nothing. I didn't say a word. And she's like, September, your life is going to change. And so many other things. She was so right about everything. But I have these random things that happen to me all the time. People are like, tell me everything. I don't know. She started talking about vaginal steaming. I was like, what is going on here? So that's how the conversation started. But she was so on point about every single thing. Yeah, I know. I had to go off on that because it was wild. Yes. And she was right about the guy, and he's in prison for 10 years now, which had nothing to do with me. But she's like, I see him locked up in confinement just in these walls, and he's going to come back. And he tried to reach out to me from prison, and I had to get a restraining order against him to stop calling me from prison. Like, I can't my book is going to be, you can't make this shit up. Because all of these things truly happen. So if you need to know how to get someone blocked from prison, I'm your girl.
A whole consulting firm about that.
Like a whole consulting firm. But the big thing was boundaries. You stepped over boundaries. Yeah. And that's been my big theme, is boundaries for myself, for work, for life, for my kids, family, everything. It taught me boundaries. And that if you don't stick up for yourself, then it's just going to keep happening.
For you.
Yeah.
God. It's a lot here, huh? A lot of...
We could go for hours.
And endless, barrage of intense shit happening.
Just you can't make this shit up. You can't. And I can laugh about it because that's, sarcasm, humor, trauma. That's what you do, right? tell you mass trauma is like you become very funny and sarcastic. So that's just kind of how I roll. But I think if you can't laugh about it, right, you have to at some point when you've gone through that. I can look back and laugh at it now because it's like all of those things happen at that time, but I'm still here, and that's what I'm here.
What I love about humor is back in grad school, I was taking this diagnostic course, and there's this amazing book that kind of went through all the different defense mechanisms and was tying them to the DSM, like all the different kind of things. And it described defense mechanisms in this way of like, it's when they come up when life is too painful to face reality. And so they all distort reality in a particular way. And that humor is the kind of, I don't know the best way to put it, but like the lightest defense mechanism. It distorts reality the least, where like a psychotic break would be, the most full break from reality. So I don't know. I like to share that with people. It's like,
that's pretty amazing. Like, and I've never heard it like broken down. TikTok and Instagram memes like tell you basically if how your trauma has made you so fucking funny. My sister and I like share that stuff together all the time. But I like that it's the lightest because I don't want to have a psychotic breakdown. So I laugh a lot. So,
and there's everything in between from repression, suppression, sublimation, all the different things. But, and, it's like, I don't, unless we're about to become Buddha or Christ or something, we're not going to let go of all defense mechanisms. And that's not necessarily the idea even. And as we do healing work, we can let go of them and come out of our repression, come out of our suppression and things like that. And ideally use lighter and lighter defense mechanisms and not need them in times where we may have used to need them. But yeah, it's, defense mechanisms are super useful and are there for a reason too. And yeah, but, so all of this is happening and okay. Yeah. I know my question is how, like, what did you feel leaving the hair salon?
It was like, I called my girlfriend, like, can't fucking make this shit up. So she ends up telling me something that you're going to come into some money. She's not sure why. So my brother, who never calls me 20 minutes later to tell me that he has put me as for his, when he passes away, like he's worked for the union in New Jersey for however, God knows how many years that I'll be getting his benefits when he passes away, which is the oddest thing to hear. Like someone says, okay, you're going to have this money. So that fucked me up. And I was like, so do I have to lose my brother to like not have to worry about money anymore? So it was a very weird experience. And it left me really kind of fucked up on it, to be honest, because she was so right about so many things.
Or I don't know, kind of like shock and
Yes.
awe and like,
just like
what is going on?
Yes, to process that, like I kind of had like a little mini like meltdown after that, like because I was just like, this can't. For
So
somebody who's so right about your life, who knows nothing about you, and then get a phone call from your brother who's like, "Hey, you're gonna get my." It was just like, what is going on right now? It left me a little shook for a while, I will say.
Yeah. So was the shock because of the information that she told you, or also because you were just like, I didn't even know this was possible? Like, what is she even tapping into? Was it like
I believe
that kind of mystery?
I totally believe in spirituality and people being mediums, and like I don't believe like all of it, you know what I mean? Like I want to say to like an extent, but the fact that she pinpointed so many things that were to the T, it's like, how the fuck do you know that? And then why is my brother calling me now 20 minutes later after like that is just like, what? Like, can't make this shit up.
There's this one spiritual book that I really like that it talks about how life will sometimes give us experiences that we can't explain to evoke a sense of awe and wonder and to inspire our own seeking. And that it's kind of one of the mechanisms of life and spiritual evolution, so to say, is that and yeah, it makes sense that it would shake you up a bit, but that the idea is to evoke this sense of seeking, to be like, whoa, like something about the way I was thinking about the world is not quite true if I just experienced what I experienced. And I did just experience that. So like, what is going on here?
Yeah, no, but I do. I mean, I believe in that. And I'm always trying to learn more and ascend higher and, just want to level up all the time, And I think that, like I said, divine timing, people are put into your life at certain times for certain reasons to shake things up a little bit, and it did. And I am so thankful for her that she just sat next to me and like told me this. But things like that happen for me. And I love that they happen for me because I appreciate them. I see them. Like, I'm a deep thinker. I go deeper into it and I dive into it. And I did my human design, like I'm super into astrology. Like, I am all about like what makes you, and I
Human design's
just
great.
have experiences where things like that happen for me randomly. And I love it.
So when was that? Because she said September, everything will change.
So this was in February.
And I guess you were not signed up for the retreat at that point. That probably wasn't even.
Like, it wasn't even on like the radar.
Yeah.
This was like right before my birthday, which is, I'm an Aries, March 24th, which then my astrology at the time told me everything that was going to happen. And it was 100% right. So yeah, it was the last 6 months, they were a lot. Like, you take the breast cancer out, like, and that is honestly like put to the side. All of the other things like started to happen. And that's when really things just the relationship really, like, that really fucked me up. When someone like your father, who you look for, right? Because you're looking for approval and for the love and blah, blah, blah. That really shook me up. And that really took me down for like quite a while.
And so by the time September comes, you're kind of trying to heal from the relationship still.
And being honest about the relationship now. So then it's like, now my close friend, friend or two knew how bad it was, but being honest with it, with Karen, and doing that, and then having to tell my kids, like, hey, this first man that I've ever let my children meet after being divorced, well, he's in prison now, that was that.
Yeah.
And just having to be open and honest and not take that on as shame was like, really, there was a lot of healing in that. It took a lot.
How did you hear about the retreat? I imagine from Karen
just from
in a second.
And she was, telling me about it. And I knew that she had gone to Puerto Rico to do and she was doing this. And I was like, the second she said she was started the training, I was like, oh my God, I'm so fucking excited. And then she mentioned it and she was like, there's going to be scholarships. And so she's like, would you be interested? And I'm like, 100%. Do you have any questions? I'm like, nope. Like, you're not taking me into a dark room and like a haunted house, but like, and when it comes to things like this, I'm like 100%. Like, yes, let's just do this.
Yeah. And so take me to like, say like the week before or so as you're sort of preparing. How was that?
That was the week where I was on edge. That was the week where my doctor was worried about me. So I was just waiting for this retreat. I was counting on it, like I said before, because I was at my wit's end. So I was hanging on by a thread.
So it wasn't like nervous anticipation of the retreat. It was like, get me to the retreat.
It was
so I can
really get me to the retreat because
yeah.
I can't hang on anymore. Like, that was where I was at. My doctor was worried. Like, you could see it on my face. Like, yeah, I would never, ever hurt myself or harm myself. I just didn't know what I was going to do to keep hanging on anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a hard place to be at for somebody who's a fighter, where you have no fight left in you anymore. I had no more fight. I was exhausted. I was losing sleep. I have, found out I have like gastritis and some, kidney problems that runs in my family. Like, my body has been screaming at me for so long, and I just was white knuckling again, and I couldn't anymore.
Yeah.
So that was what the week before. Literally, that's what that week was. And drove through the storm to, by the way, the hurricane.
Wow.
To get to that retreat.
Yeah. And so what was it like when you got there?
Well, when we finally made it there safe, so I drove with my best friend. We've been friends for 10 plus years, and another friend who I met at another hypnotherapy retreat. So we all went together, and I drove because I was like, I need to have control. And it was raining so terribly that every sensor on my car that I've never seen in my entire life, basically what my nervous system will look like, that's what the sensors on my car. I mean, hydroplaning everywhere. I was as calm as could be. My friends are in the back smoking weed, having a good time. And I'm just here like in the front, just I'm DJ and I'm driving. So like I'm good. They had no idea what it was like driving there. So once we finally made it, which it almost felt like we weren't, but I prayed before, and I'm not a big prayer, for the bubble to just protect every single person who was going there and to protect us. And we made it. I mean, and we made it. And I'm telling you, it was real touch and go there for a while because that hurricane, it was pretty intense.
Yeah.
But when we got there, it was a good feeling. It wasn't like awkward. I only knew, I knew two people. So it's like kind of makes you feel better. All right, I have my two friends here with me. So this is a little bit of comfort. But we ended up being in a room with two other women that we did not know. So there was only one room in the house that had a shared room. And it ended up being the best room like in the entire house. And it was oceanfront. And it was just meeting new people. And, everybody kind of walks in like a little, it's the nerves. You can see that everybody has come with the high blood pressure on their face, like kind of look. But every single woman made it there safely. And the first night it was really cool. It was really cool.
All women?
It was all women. And I'm so glad it was all women. And then Dr. G, who is the most amazing human being in the entire world. And I adore him so much. But yeah, and it was all women, and Karen's daughter.
Shout out to
Dr.
Galindo.
G.
He runs Inner Bloom, which is a ketamine clinic out of Charleston, South Carolina.
Yeah. I mean, it was, all women. Dr. Karen's daughter was the chef. And I mean, we literally were not allowed to put away dishes, to do, like, we were treated like queens. And we had the most amazing food, and just getting to know new people and navigating and listening. It was it was like to see people on day one and then to see them at the end. It was like every single person was fucking glowing. So, I could talk to anyone.
That's what I love about Richard.
Yeah, but like the walking in, it's like the people who are like, oh shit, am I really doing, then you have like the people who are excited, and, everybody's got like a feeling, but it flowed really well. I mean, it really did. We lost power that night and the house was shaking, and we're on the top floor, only oceanfront room. At like 3 a.m., the entire house is shaking and the electricity goes out. Again, you can't make this shit up. Yeah. So that's how the first night started.
Was there like talk of if it's going to get canceled or if you guys
Not
need
a
to
single
leave?
person, nobody. As like, if Karen ain't saying it, then we're all going. And we were all just like, you know what? We're doing, like, everyone was like, no, we're doing this. Like, no one canceled. Everyone showed up. And she was so worried. You could tell, like, poor Karen, like, she's like the type A, like, she could see the like worry on her face, but everyone showed up through the storm. And it was, I mean, I'm telling you, it was a hell of a drive. So then you have people showing up after driving white knuckling for like 3 hours, like through like the pre-hurricane weather on like dark roads. Like, yeah, it was interesting. But I think once everyone landed, they were calm, and we had dinner and talked, and, ended up in the room with some really amazing women, and we just laughed all night long. And we're like, oh my God, you're an Aries. Like, we're all like fire signs. And I was like, Karen, you did this on purpose, didn't you? But she just landed us in a room. And I mean, I walked away with like more amazing friends. Like friends that you could talk about this kind of shit with.
Yeah. And so take us to the first experience.
So we woke up with no electricity, but we all get a text from Karen. Yoga's on 7:30. See you downstairs. So we had a yoga instructor come, and we did yoga, and it was like a nice, gentle. Things were like a little bit behind just because of the electricity, but we're all like laid out in the living room on like basically like tent mattresses. Like everyone's got like their own like blow up tent mattress. You have your headphones, and everyone's like settled. Dr. G does a little meditation and kind of gets you into the space and starts, basically going like, I ended up being the last person getting the shot for the first one. So he starts, goes and gives everyone the shot, does all the things. My friend, her name is Sierra, but I call her Janice. because she reminds me of Janis Joplin. She was the first one. She puts her eye shades on. She's like, see you on the other side. And then she's out. And then you just sort of go into, you're kind of patiently waiting. And then he comes and gives you your shot. You have your music on. He's got a perfectly curated playlist for this.
Do you have a particular intention for the whole thing and for each session?
My intention was to come home to myself. And that was it.
Yeah.
And that was to come back to myself. Because I'd lost myself along the way and I just wanted to come home. And that's such a loose intention because I feel like sometimes people get like, oh, I have to manifest this and I have to, and you just get so caught up on well, what if this does it? I wanted to just go in and be like, this is whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But I want to come home to myself.
I mean, from everything that you have shared about leading up, it sounds spot on.
Yep. So that was just my intention. So I guess, time is one of those things when you start to do this ketamine thing. 5 minutes into it, it starts to get psychedelic-y, which I wasn't, didn't think it was going to be like that. So it was colors and things, and you just start to feel your body melts. And the first one was really just this is okay. This is safe. You're safe. So the first sort of thing, and I didn't see anyone in my first journey, but it was all these brick walls. And then the brick walls start breaking down, and then there's just green fields. And it was just so I was letting my walls down. And that was what that first one did, was it allowed my walls to, and it was just these green fields and just kind of floating through it. It was really more, I feel like the first one was more of a trippy kind of relaxing. Nothing felt off or weird. Those bricks came down in the green fields and it just sort of went through that. There were some skulls that started breaking down, and shattering, and just there was a lot of just walls breaking. There was a lot of opening. It was allowing my heart to open, which ended up being what my second one did, was I opened up my heart. But the first one was really just relaxing into this is safe, you're okay. There was nothing traumatic, the hypnotherapy, your screen, the type of, it was all very relaxing. And it was just, this is safe. And this is okay. So my first one was really more just chill, just kind of flying through the air and kind of stuff, and going through the fields and the forest and listening to the birds and things like that. So that was what my first experience was.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, to me, in one sense, I would say it seems so basic, but just that sense of all is well.
Yes.
Everything's okay here. I mean, that is that core nervous system safety that we're talking about. And fundamentally, I would say is quite a spiritual experience, actually, even though describing it can be relatively mundane, but also something just so typical of what ketamine can bring to people.
Yes.
Yeah, really, really kind of fantastic and a bit different than other medicines per se too, because I think more classical psychedelics can give people really kind of high, beautiful experiences, but they can also be harrowing and not nearly as consistently giving that warm hug kind of all is well here.
Yes, that's the best way to describe it, was there was no anxiety, because I know doing mushrooms, people can get anxious, it was not like that whatsoever. And did take the anti-nausea medicine first too, only one person didn't take it and she threw up, but it was very, she was like, I'm doing it the next time. But it was really just, okay, your nervous system is okay. You're safe. This is a good place. You're good. So while it doesn't seem all oh my gosh, it was a very spiritual experience. To have those walls breaking down, that was a very big theme. That is huge in itself for me. So that was, and they start, with the low dose, which is great. So in it, and that's intentional so that you feel safe, so that your body and your brain allow it to do what it wants to do.
Love the symbolic space that psychedelics can take us into, where you saw a brick wall and then you saw it crumble and then you were in a green field. And that, I mean, again, just the symbolism is super clear with that. It's
100%.
My walls were coming down. Wow. But I saw it visually as I felt it and experienced it.
like
Yeah.
the whole body experience, like brain, body, mind, nervous, like it was everything that I needed right then and there. Like, and from that moment on, everything changed. And we woke up to electricity. And my girlfriend was like, I did that.
That was part of her journey, was turning the electricity back on.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that was what she said. And
Love that.
I know, it was amazing. But yeah, I think for most people, they all had that same, there was maybe one girl like had a headache, like some people have different reactions, but I think everyone just was like, you could see the change in their face from the first experience. The glow started to happen.
Yeah.
The walls came down. The baseline of having adrenaline here was no longer there. Everyone was a little bit more open. And, you know, there was a few that I was a little, you know, worried about, but you could see the immediate change with just the one. And I was like, man, what the fuck's tomorrow going to be like, man? This is going to be crazy.
Yeah. That was, and how was session 2?
Oof, that was the one. So the second one, I went first and we started with a higher dose.
Do you know what your doses were?
So I started at a level 1 and if I knew what that was, I'm not 100%.
I wonder if for him that's like a particular milligram per kilogram amount.
It is.
Yeah.
There was only 1 or 2 other people that had done it already, but we all started with like the level 1. So we'll call it that. And I could find out whatever that dosage is.
Yeah.
And then your second shot, you know, during the first journey, if you want another higher one, he'll give you one. So I had done that. So then I started, yes.
Okay, so he would boost like that. Okay, and you took the booster for the first one.
So it's
during the first journey.
You take the first shot. He comes about 20 minutes later. Do you want another one? You give the thumbs up or the thumbs down, you know, because he doesn't want to disrupt you. So yeah, I guess I forgot to say that. So then started, you know, at the higher dose on the second journey, and it was fucking wild. I'm just gonna, this one, I had to tell people on a normal basis, like it was very transformative because like if you tell people this, you sound fucking crazy. So it started out, oh man, I was in like either a time hopped. I was either in like Ireland or Scotland. I don't know if you've ever seen like Outlander. Like, but it's a show where they kind of go back. It was like I was in like the 1500s. And it was really just me like walking through the green fields. Again, it was the green fields was like a very big theme. Then I went to Egypt. Yep. Yeah, I went to Egypt, and it ended up being that my best friend who was sitting next to me, we both were in the same places. We did not see each other, but we literally we both went to like, it was either Ireland or Scotland, like, and then Egypt. And oh yeah. And then that's where more of the skulls came. And it was like, I was kind of just flying and all these skulls, thousands of skulls. Like it was like the thousands of versions of who I was or my ancestors or whatever it was, just again, shattering and just coming down and break the wall at the breaking of the wall theme, like kind of thing. So I kind of time hopped for like a little bit. And then I go back into the womb with my mom. And I'm like, Mom, I need you. I've never said those words like my entire life. I was like, we need to do this together. So we went back into the womb and rebirthed myself. Like DNA, blood vessels, like heart beating, like everything that you could see on the inside, like baby. And we rebirthed and healed my birth. And her version of what my birth was like too. Because I think within this, I've healed my mom because she's been a very, very, very big theme. I see her, she's there a lot and it's very strange. But we went through the birth canal and like healed it. And I was like, I need you. And she was like, you're doing it. Like, you got this. You were doing everything. And it was just so like weird to say that out loud, right? I'm sure you've heard all kinds of stories, but I had to go back to the beginning to come home to myself. And I was crying the whole time, not sobbing, just crying. And I knew but it wasn't like a sobbing. It was just, you know, when your tears are just flowing. And we come out and my grandparents that raised me, they both passed away. Were there. And I have this animals and birds just like love me. And I saw my grandfather and he was a hummingbird and my grandmother was a flower. And I have hummingbirds that come up to my face all the time. Like, I mean, and I always knew it was him. And he was like, that's me.
This time though, like in the ketamine journey, you see him as yeah.
Yeah.
And then was letting you know that when you see hummingbirds in real life, that it's him.
That he's always there, because that man has been the only man in my entire life that has ever protected me and loved me. And when they passed away, like it still makes me emotional every single day. And then I had to have all these flowers, and I was like, they're like, we're always here, showing me that they're always here with me. And I got to hug them, but like, it felt so real. It felt so real to hug them and tell them that I missed them. But then they were like, we're always here. I'm the hummingbird and she's the flower, and just, it was such a heart-opening experience for me to go through that with my mom, who caused me so much pain, but she had so much pain, and I've had to forgive her because it wasn't her fault. So before you can do any of this, you got to forgive, right? You got to cut the cord of anger, and like, she was doing what she could do. And I just, I've had sessions where I've had like these cords of ancestors like falling off. And I think that's the skulls, It's like this healing that I'm doing for myself is healing so many years of pain and trauma. And I believe that ancestral trauma, 100% DNA, like it's real. And for me to be able to go on the other side, to ask her to come with me. I mean, I went through it. I mean, it opened my heart. So one of the therapists, Tracy, was like, she's like, you went through it, didn't you? She's like, I watched it. That was the most beautiful, healing, transformative experience to heal that abandoned mother wound thing that is real. It's heavy. You're a woman. Like, the one thing you want is your mom, right? Like, as anyone, like even for a man, like the love and comfort, I never got that. And that she was there for me when I needed her, to heal her and to heal me at the same time, and to heal her ancestors. Like, it was wild. I mean, and I cried like the whole time. I knew I was crying. It was like I was aware that I was crying, but I was also like aware that I was in Egypt and in the womb at the same. What a beautiful experience to get to do that, to get to the core, right? Again, it's always like that core, that hurt little girl that's like always living inside and not feeling wanted and not feeling loved. And, she was like, but you're doing such a good job. It was everything that I needed. It was everything that I needed. And I think everyone should get to experience this amazing medicine to heal whatever it is, because we all come with some kind of baggage. But my baggage was so, like, that mountain was real high and that baggage was real heavy.
You got this experience of your mother's love and presence.
Yeah, it was, I got to come home, right? Like, that rebirth was me coming back home to myself. To keep that loose intention of just, I know that there's what's there, it's going to come out. And it was a long time. It was the dad thing and the abuse. And it was really the core. It was like mom. Because to be a mother, I could never understand how someone could not love their children. I'll never understand. But through this healing journey, I've had to understand that that's what she had to do. And that's a lot of forgiveness. And she's come to me in EMDR many times. I mean, like, she truly has. And it's been very interesting. So that second journey that was the big one. That was like the core. That was the heart. That was like those walls. Because my heart was so fucking like, ooh, you couldn't break that thing. Not even Jon Snow could do it, Like, it was like, was so, like, you can't get to me. Like, I'm tough, like, but I'm really like such a soft person. Life makes you hard, but I know that I've not allowed life to let me be hard or unkind or a bad person. It's made me be the complete opposite. And to go through all of those hard things in life and still be a good person and loving and caring, and to continue healing so that it doesn't make me somebody who's angry at the world. Because that's what my mom did. And I don't want to do that. Got to break that fucking cycle. Cycle breaking, like, man, people don't get enough credit for that.
I was just sharing in another podcast that we just did yesterday. About how I think there's something about our generation where we're really aware of and beginning to turn toward intergenerational trauma and have the languaging to say, like, I think it's very just in the zeitgeist these days, like wanting to break generational trauma and, gosh, what do they call it? I feel like there's like a term, like wanting to be the being the one who stops the pattern, essentially.
I feel like that was what I was born to do. I feel like that was my purpose, and to have a purpose and to go through so much and to get to go through that and heal that with my mom. Like that's so profound. And it's beautiful to want to do that for my kids, for their children, for the world, because like we got to stop. Mental illness is a fucking thing. It kills people. It killed my mother. And I refuse to let what life has done to me do that to me.
And it's so inherited by how we treat our kin or our progeny.
And I just think that I'd love that this generation is like, no, we're stopping this, because that's what it takes. And you can feel the collective feeling, that collective, those people who are like ascending and not wanting to stay here. We want to go. We want to be better. The world can't be, if the world's not better, I'm still going to be better. I'm still going to be good, because I'm not going to let it take me down. And I have told you just snippets of the terrible things, but like, and I'm still a good person. That's why I want to do this ketamine. That's why I want to do therapy, is because I want to be a good person. I don't want to let it take me down. I'm not going to be like my parents.
Meaning as another word that is always resonating in my mind as I listen to these stories. I feel like I get it now, what you were saying when we first got on about how kind of important to your life this weekend was. And yeah, I mean, it just sounds like it got to be one of the most meaningful experiences for you.
Of my entire life. And I've had 2 children, so I can't, I have to put them on the top that I gave birth. But like, this was the most meaningful, healing, needed, necessary weekend that I have worked so hard towards. And that the work was there, but like, I couldn't you're like on the edge of like, I just can't. And then you experience this ketamine and you're like, holy shit. Every session with Karen after has been unbelievable. Like I've accessed so much, my brain, my baseline, my adrenaline's no longer here. Like I'm able to function with things that would normally kind of make me a little bit just like, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm not, you know what? Okay. Everything's going to be fine. It has allowed me to stop living on the edge and thinking the worst, because it's like, no, it'll be okay. Like, Kelly, you're going to be good. Your money's short right now. You know what? Something's going to happen. Like it helped me to believe again. When you think that you've lost faith, and it just helped me to have faith again.
That like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Like, you're good. My mom's like, you're good. You're doing like it reminds you. It stops you from like going 1,000 miles a minute to just taking it down. And my anxiety was at 100 to like basically none. I came home and slept like a fucking baby for like a month, which I was, not sleeping.
Like it was
yeah,
much needed. Yeah.
Like it's like you get the best sleep of your life, even within the window of your journey. It's like you've slept for 3 days because your body is so relaxed. And there's, my nervous system feels soft. That was like the biggest thing, was like, it feels soft again.
Yeah. And I really want to highlight how these 2 ketamine experiences were not just like dropped into your life. I think they were so potent for you because of the years of prep, so to speak. Yeah. It's so beautiful to see when preparation like that, or just, you've been working on yourself for so long, and then like, your system's just ready and the right moment comes and the right experience happens, and what that can really look like. It's, it's fucking profound.
It really is. And it is helpful to have done so much therapy, right? Because I'm going to say the average person going into I can't speak for someone on that level, but, when your doctor explains like what it, just neurologically does for you, you're like, hell yes, and then all the other benefit, I don't know, but like doing so much prep, knowing like, hey, this is where I was going to go, or if this, whatever happens, used to being in the therapeutic like mindset, but I don't know if I would have just, without the years of therapy that I've been doing, I don't know what the experience would have been like. I'm not sure. So I don't know how that how that works for some people. Do most people go in, usually have been doing therapy for a while, or, or just, hey, we're just going to do this ketamine. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure if my body would have been like, this is okay.
Yeah, I think it very much depends. I think ideally someone is at least getting 3 to 4 therapy sessions before for someone who say has like never done therapy, but it's done in a lot of different ways and in a lot of different sort of contexts too. But yeah, like it, you know, to me, psychedelic therapy is so powerful, but I think it's most powerful, as we see with your story, in conjunction with really just other things, whether that's just talk therapy or, the trauma-based therapy that you were doing, but also, you mentioned like the yoga teacher training. It's like there's all different kinds of ways to heal and ways to do self-exploration and look inward and kind of excavate our inner world. And psychedelics is just a piece of that. And I think it's, just most potent when people are kind of already in their own process of excavating their inner world in some degree.
To know how to process what you've also just taken in, it's important to have that therapy session. I've already got my session booked with Karen next Monday. So, got that 72 hours right after, because it is important to unpack what you've learned and then go deeper, because it does really gave my mind, body, and soul the ability to go deeper within just the EMDR sessions after.
Yeah. And, I'm not surprised at all hearing that. And perhaps this would also answer the question too, is like, what I really noticed about your two sessions is your trauma didn't really come up. And I imagine that's because for years you've really been unpacking it with the EMDR. So my guess is that if there was none of that EMDR beforehand, it would have been a lot. I mean, who knows what the content of the experience would have been, but I imagine those were just layers that you already worked through. And so you could have that kind of real big healing love experience.
A soft experience.
The soft experience.
Because like I said, when I did the other retreat, it was traumatic because it was new. It was, you know what I mean? It was new.
The hypnotherapy retreat. Yeah, because it was disturbing.
It was disturbing.
Memories.
Yes.
Returning. Yeah, for
None
sure.
of this ketamine experience at all was disturbing, traumatic, hurtful. It was beautiful. It was such a beautiful experience. Like, it is a very soft healing experience, medicine that just, it's, and I haven't done any of the other, I want to do all of them, I want to do ayahuasca. Now I know there's one where you don't shit yourself and throw up all day. So I'm like, I'm down for that because nobody wants to me, that sounds traumatic.
It can be.
Yeah.
It's intense.
But it was very soft. And I do think that along with the intention to come home to myself, which was a loosely based intention, was just, all right, where are we going to go? And it went wherever it was supposed to be without me saying like, no, that's not where, you can't do that. You have to have that first one to be like, all right, this is cool, man. Right. This cool, we're okay. So it was nice for it to not be traumatic. And there was nothing but laughs. I mean, I don't think I've laughed that much in the longest time with the women that were in the room. And just we made everyone else laugh because we were all ourselves. And I smiled more. It just lifted so much heaviness that I'm not typically like that person.
I love that deep experience is surrounded by laughter, social connection, play.
All of it, the laughter, Dr. G was just he's like, I just love to sit and watch you laugh. He's like, it's really just, it makes me happy. And for, people came to me and were like, you opened up about your experience and it helped me open up. And it was like, me, because again, I always minimize my trauma. Because I talk about it like it's no big deal. But when you find out you have so much more in common with people, other women, and then you allow them to open up, it was really a beautiful experience. And it reminded me of what a good person I am and that I'm here for a reason. So there's so much, you just can't even put into words, not a single moment of that trip, even with the house shaking and losing electricity. It was all magical and beautiful and amazing and just filled with love and changed so many lives.
What really sticks out too is it sounds like you had a pretty big impact on a lot of the women there.
I did. And it's really hard for me to sometimes give myself credit because I don't, but I did.
The thought I have when you were saying that you minimize your trauma, as you were speaking of having an impact on these women, I was like, I wonder if you also minimize your gifts and what you give to people.
I think I do. I'm a love language person, so I will tell everyone else how amazing they are, right? I give it, and I'm just not used to receiving it. So I'm learning to, if someone gives a compliment and I'm like, you know what, thank you. That's something that I'm working on. Because when you're not used to that love and that affection, it's hard to receive. But I'm a giver. Oh my gosh, like you need the shirt up and back, like you got it. But I, in turn, don't tend to do that and give myself credit. So that retreat really did. It boosted my self-confidence like 100%. Life is now happening again. So I can't wait for Friday to see Dr. G again and get to refuel myself again. Yeah. Because it's not like a one done and you're forever healed like thing, but it really is, it took me from being like going at 100% all the time. And I said, this is like, I'm going to go 1%, but I'm going to give 100% to my 1%. Because you can't, I'm like an all or nothing person. And I had to learn like, hey, you got to can't. But if you give that 100% to your 1% each day, then that's where the magic happens.
I know that this will be very impactful for a lot of people just to listen to you tell your story. And, I hope you get to see that as a good story.
Oh gosh, like totally don't want to, but absolutely want to at the same time. But to share what an amazing medicine this is, and the closer it gets to being more accessible to people, which is my wish. If I had money one day, like that would be something that I would gift to someone else, because I know so many people that you see hurting, and my wish is that you could just feel good, because just to feel good, even 1% better, right? Like it makes a big difference in how you show up in the world for yourself and for others. And that was, this really did change my life. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to get to experience it stress-free, right? Like stress-free, like here's a gift. It's like, thank you, life.
That's a good place to call it.
Right.
Thank you so very much, Kelly.
Yes.
This was really just wonderful, delightful to be here with you, to hear your story. And thank you so much for being so open with it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Life, and your organization. I mean, you're really changing the world. And like I say, it's one person at a time, and that matters, because we need that. So thank you for having me and listening.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody. Until next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Thank You Life podcast. If you would like to get involved with our mission and help more people in need access ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, please consider becoming a monthly supporter. Donations are the sole means through which we provide financial assistance to our beneficiaries, and we currently have close to 1,000 people in need on our waitlist. This work could not happen without our generous supporters, so if you've been touched by hearing these stories of healing and want to make an impact, please consider visiting our website, thankyoulife.org, and becoming a monthly supporter.